Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final NATS chat of the 2022-23 season. I am so pleased to be here to talk about this topic, Latin American and Spanish music, with my esteemed guests, Omar Herrera, Adrianalía Moutz, and Juanita Ulloa. I hope I did at least close. Thank you, three of you. They have put in so much work and have been so passionate about presenting and discussing this topic with all of us tonight. So I'm really grateful for your energy and willingness to share your expertise. Juanita, why don't you launch us a little bit? I'd like to just ask each of you to introduce yourself to our group for those who you might be new to, and we'll go from there. So let's start with Juanita.
Well, hello everybody, and hello Kari, and thank you first of all for including us in the NATS chat, because we are very passionate about this area of the world that really is not on a lot of people's radar in the voice world, and I think that's something that we're all about changing, because there's so much great music. My name is Dr. Juanita Ulloa. People know me as the Operachi singer because although I love folk styles, my classical training and some background in opera really led me in a direction of, oh, how can we do this in a more healthy vocal way? And as far as music degrees, I was originally a pianist, studying at Yale University, and then a master's at UC Berkeley, and a DA at the University of Northern Colorado, which I only finished in 2016. I went back later for that because I kept waiting for some Latin American vocal program to emerge, and nothing did. And I suddenly realized, oh, I need to create one. And so that's been my life's work, and I'm just so delighted to be here. And go ahead and have us, should I present my colleagues here, or?
Yes, please do. Please do.
Okay, I'll start with Adrianalía, a wonderful colleague and friend who I met back 15 years ago when we were performing in Granada. And we've always stayed in touch, and now she's just finished her DMA dissertation, and she's going to be talking about this wonderful new dissertation that is literally hot off the press today, which I'm very excited to share. I'll be talking more about different Mexican styles of music and some publications that I've done there. And then my other friend, Omar Herrera, is a wonderful pianist and heads up a really interesting project called the Ponce Project. And Manuel M. Ponce, we know him as the father of Mexican song, and he's kind of like the Bartok of Mexico that went and collected all this wonderful folk music. And Omar takes this extremely seriously. He even has a lineage connected to Ponce that he'll tell you about. And together, the three of us really want to work towards creating more publications and sheet music and concerts available to the voice community and to all singers.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, thank you for being here. So let's start with the broad strokes. Why should Latin American music should be sung and should be on everyone's repertoire list? I know it might seem like a rhetorical question, but let's discuss that.
Yes, I'm pretty ardent that it should, because if you look in the United States alone, there are, I think it's 42 million. It's a huge amount of people, 54 million Spanish speakers in the US alone. And if you are raising kids in the United States, most of them leave high school having studied 2 to 4 years of Spanish. And then they get to college and suddenly they want to be singers and they're not using their Spanish. They're suddenly saying, you got to learn French, Italian, German. And we're like, well, gosh, they might be more confident if, especially if their parents or they have some relationship to Latin America, if they could use the Spanish that they've already been learning, and there is music available. So speaking both in terms of population and geography, there are important reasons why I think this music should be integrated into the regular music that we teach as voice teachers. There are 470 million Spanish native speakers worldwide, spread over 26 countries. I mean, this is a massive area, and we're just going to barely touch one or two specific themes. But if you imagine that multiplied by 26 countries and many indigenous languages, you'll start to see how big this area is. So that's
interesting. It is interesting to consider when you think of the Western classical tradition of academia. You know, it's Italian, French, and German. You know, it's really interesting to ponder how and when that tradition started and became so embedded in the curriculum. It's really interesting.
Well, especially if you go back and study the relationship between Spain and Italy between 1400 and 1750, 1800, you'll see that Spain even ruled a huge part of southern Italy, and the interrelationship between the two was constant. And so that's why some of the early zarzuela vocal traditions are very similar in the two countries, with just the difference being the language.
I think it's if I may say something, I think it's this is something I call cultural colonialism. And it might sound extreme, but I think it's true. Something I didn't even realize when I was a student. We learned counterpoint and harmony with examples from Europe. But we also have, and we, I mean all this continent, have great composers that are as good as the, you know, the big trilogy, Mozart, Bach, and Beethoven, right? But beyond comparison, I think the thing is, and answering your question, Kari, I think is this Western culture, meaning Europe, and in music specifically, as you said, German, Italian, and German, Italian, and French. Because even Spain and Russia are always peripheral. They're not always, you know, part of. Maybe the guitar repertoire in Mexico and in Spain are part of the standard repertoire, but everything else is always seen as exotic or something you study to specialize, maybe, but it's not part of the curriculum in schools. Anyway, I mean, we can talk about this for hours, but that's my perspective there.
I appreciate that. I really do. So, Juanita, where would you like, you had kind of a trajectory for this tonight. Where would you like to go? Would you like to do Adrianalía's presentation?
Well, before we get to each one of our presentations, each one of us is going to talk about one topic very briefly. And then we want to get back to some general themes. And one general theme I wanted to cover first is because every time I'm at a NATS event or I see how underrepresented music in Spanish is in NATS voice competitions, everybody answers to me, they say, oh, well, I just don't know where to get the music. And so I wanted to answer that directly first and let people know there really is a way to get a hold of this music. First of all, when people, we've seen in NATS this huge blossoming of commercial song, and I believe it's going national. I don't know exactly when. And I wanted to let folks know you can be doing ballads in Spanish, boleros in Spanish. We've had someone in our San Francisco chapter win their category, commercial category, singing, and Cal Western Regional, singing mariachi. And so in the commercial category. So you can find some of these songs under, I mean, Hal Leonard has, and many companies have published books of boleros, so those are easy to find. There's also musicnotes.com now has many popular songs and national anthems and Latin jazz type stuff and boleros. I think Sheet Music Plus is not far behind. And then as far as classical Latin American song, of course, there's IMSLP. And there's, we all as singers love Glenn Dower at Classical Vocal Reprints. And this is one other spot. But I wanted to briefly mention a couple more. One is the music library at the University of Northern Colorado. They have a dedicated building and they have so many out of print song collections from people from the 20s, 30s, 40s, when this music was really, really done by every opera singer. That's fun. And then many special collections, sections of libraries. For example, at Northwestern, at the University of New Mexico, their Center for Southwest Research, at the Library of Congress. And we have a list of these places. If you want to receive a list, we can make this available to you. And of course, there's interlibrary loan. And one special place I wanted to mention is that even though we don't have as much published sheet music yet, we do have access to a growing number of individual dissertations where you can get a hold of the author and the music, and there's nothing they want more than to share their music. So there's not going to be the same copyright conflict or delay. So that's a starting place for finding some of this music. And as a final example, there you can go to the publishers themselves in the home main country. For example, in Buenos Aires, there's a famous Editorial Lagos, that's Lagos Publishing House, and they have, right on their website, it says we have 4,000 sheet music publications of tangos. And I have a link in our list that we can supply. So it is just about finding out how to become aware of where to find these things. So it is possible. Just wanted you guys to know that. And yes,
wonderful.
Move on with Adrianalía, that'd be.
Yeah, okay. I would like to put a PowerPoint for my presentation, as we agreed.
Do you have it? Let me see. Oh, hang on. Give me one moment. Let me change it back. There you go. Now I bet.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There we go. Can we expand it?
Yes. First of all, I am honored to be here. Thank you very much, Kari, for the invitation to share about Latin American and Spanish art song through your wonderful program. First of all, first of all, also, I would like to make a brief comment about what motivated me to pursue this research. I met the composer during an international festival of Spanish art song in Granada, where I met my wonderful colleague, Juanita Ulloa. While there, it was offered a masterclass with Garcia, Abril, and I performed his song cycle, 4 songs on Galician text. Juanita and other wonderful singers performed other songs by the composer as well. And after getting acquainted with this beautiful new repertoire, completely fell in love with his songs. Not only because of the sheer quality of the music and poetry, but also for the high level of expression and Abril's inspired melodies, for which he's famous. Hence the title of my dissertation, In Defense of Melody. Years later, I had the opportunity to perform and research Spanish art song in Madrid for 1 year, thanks to a Fulbright scholarship. During this time, among other Spanish art song repertoire, I prepared about 65 songs by Garcia, Abril, and I was coached in most of this repertoire with the maestro himself, which was an immense honor, of course. As a result, I offered several monographic recitals as homage to the composer in Spain. After this experience, despite the fact I was already working on another topic for my dissertation, it was clear to me then that my research would be Garcia-Abril's art songs, a study that surprisingly also wasn't done yet either. Then the composer suggested I should include his vocal oeuvre, which is extensive, but since it was a pioneering work, I decided to accept the challenge because I really want Garcia-Abril's wonderful vocal music to be better known outside of Spain and to promote it. Okay. Now, just a second, please. Let's go to the, oh, something is not working here. Here we go. So let's go with the title of the research, that is, let me see, something didn't work. In Defense of Melody, Vocal Oeuvre of Spanish composer Antón García-Abril, and Survey of Art Songs with performance with some hints for performance practice. So the dedication is made to Antón García-Abril and his wife Aurea, who very gently provided all the materials that I required, including all the scores, all the vocal scores, and some other extra materials. I will be always grateful with her, of course. I am going to mention the main aspects that I addressed in my doctoral research. First, the unique cultural and historical events that surrounded most of the composer's life. For instance, Antón García-Abril grew up during a period of political turmoil that included the Spanish Civil War, the Second World War, and the dictatorship of General Francisco Franco that started in 1939. As a result, a large number of composers left the country. Musically, this period also coincided with the death of Manuel de Falla in Argentina in 1946, which left a huge vacuum in the musical community because Falla was the main referent for Spanish composers during the first half of the 20th century. In my dissertation, I also addressed the three most important musical associations referred in Spain as generaciones, or generations, whose composers highly influenced Garcia-Abril's musical style. The generation of 1951 was the most progressive music guild in Spain during the 20th century. In fact, Garcia-Abril was part of this music association. I presented Garcia-Abril as well as a composer and as a pedagogue, since he was deeply interested in the music development of future generations in his country. As head of the area of composition at the Royal Conservatory of Madrid for more than 30 years, he mentored Spanish composers that later became internationally well-known. He co-authored publications in music pedagogy and music theory and wrote multi-volume compositions for the gradual technical development in piano, violin, and guitar, as you can see in the screen. He also held administrative positions in the most influential cultural entities in Spain, such as the Royal Academy of Arts of San Fernando, fostering important improvements in the music field that were later implemented in Spanish conservatories. Practically all his vocal and instrumental compositions are published, which contrasts with the majority of Spanish composers with scores that are really hard to find. Also, several musical competitions in piano, chamber music, and compositions have been created in his name to promote his works. I also addressed his extensive music production. He composed a large number of instrumental music in practically all genres: symphony, ballet, chamber music, concerto, and compositions for solo instrument. Also incidental music for the cinema and television, with more than 200 works just in this area, with this genre. His vocal music comprises 1/3 of his entire production, and it includes, as you can see, art song with piano and or orchestra, romanza and orchestra, especially from movies, voice or voices and chamber instrumental ensemble, works for solo voice or voices, choruses, and instrumental ensembles. It includes 7 cantatas and 2 anthems that he already composed that he also composed. He has also choir works a cappella and choir with accompaniment, and also several works for stage. His opera Divine Words, several works for musical theater and tragic comedy, and several arrangements of zarzuelas.
Sorry to interrupt, Adri. Could you play something for folks that have never heard his music?
Oh, can you allow me? I'm just ready to reach that point, Juanita. Would you mind? I am just there. I wanted just to present Garcia Abril most celebrated song collection, so people will at least get a little bit familiar with that. The collection of children's songs, 4 songs on Galician texts, 3 Spanish songs, 3 lullabies, 14 Asturian songs, songs of Valle de Mozas and Jacob songs, and songs of the Secret Garden, and to end, songs of love. They are studied in detail in my dissertation. I also included in the last chapter a catalog with all his art songs, accompanied by charts with pedagogical information for each song as guidance for the voice instructor. And in the appendices, I included discography and complete catalog of his vocal works, fundamentals of diction in Castilian, Spanish, Galician, and Asturian that pertain some analyzed works, translation of poetry by Garcia Abril, which he employed in his compositions, a large number of quotations by the composer, and the complete list of his compositions translated to English. I also included several video clips of a number of his songs. After researching his art songs, I really can affirm that Abril's song production has great quality and is extremely versatile in character and level of difficulty, which makes, of course, his songs ideal for the voice studio and even for competitions. I would like to share some short video clips of some songs that you can have, so you can have a little taste, as Juanita mentioned, of the quality of Garcia Abril and Abril's music. Vocally, they are at medium level, but they require a mature level of expression. Here we go. Minute. Let me see. Here we go. This is another one. This is called Ausente de mis ojos from Songs of the Secret Garden. I have another example that is called 𝗏𝘂𝗲𝘀, which means poor you, literally. That is one of his most famous pieces from 4 Psalms on Galician texts. Let's see. Now, I'm not sure if we have more time. I was trying to select one in Castilian Spanish. This one is in Galician, and there is another one in Asturian, but I am not sure if you want to hear a little bit of this or how we are here.
Well, those are beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's so amazing. Juanita, do you want to keep moving forward? And then if the, oh, yes.
Yeah,
okay. So
not for lack of beauty of song, but we can make these available perhaps. And Adri, I think it's so important what you're saying about how Garcia Abril composed in every one of the Spanish languages from these different.
Totally, yes.
And not just in Spanish, and you were singing in all those languages. That's really important.
Yes, and because people really doesn't realize that obviously they have deep roots. It's something simply historical. And when you go to Spain, you do not expect just to speak the national language. There are regional languages that have literature, they have different expressions in poetry, and they have their own rules, you know, of grammar and things like that. So we have really several languages, and of course the regional, that is the Castilian Spanish, but we have also the Galician, that is, it was really the language from which the Portuguese, that is known now, derived. We have the Asturian, that is called Bable as well. We have the Basque language, that it doesn't have anything to do with Spanish at all. We have, of course, the Catalonian, that is the most recognized and best known. We have the Valencian, that many people really doesn't realize that it is actually a Valencian, that is a sort of a variation of the Catalonian. And there is one from the Balearic Islands, from Mallorca, that is the Mallorquí as well. And even Occitan in the very north, and a little bit of Argonian too. But Garcia Abril just used all these wonderful languages that actually have wonderful poetry and created these beautiful gems. I prefer to call them gems, you know, and made the music, made the poetry sing.
And you know, we should just mention in passing that all those different languages in Spain, while Spanish was the one taken to Latin America, except for, of course, Brazil and Portuguese, which is a completely separate topic and a huge one.
Yes.
We do have all these indigenous languages in the countries we're talking about, and there is some art song in those languages as well, and there's not a lot, but there is some. So we're not really touching on that today, but I want you all to know it definitely exists.
Yes.
2 quick questions. Who is the publisher of the Abril songs? Do you know who the publisher is?
Yes, publishing company is 𝗏𝗂𝗲𝗀 Ediciones Musicales, and he has one from the essentially, I mean, it's his own publishing company. There, some of his original songs had rights with other publishing companies in there, but I think they acquired recently the rights, and they were publishing, absolutely the totality of his works, instrumental and vocal. Yeah, it is 𝗏𝗲𝗲 Ediciones Musicales.
Could you write that in the chat, maybe, Adrianalía?
Yes.
Thank you.
You know, and speaking of all those languages, I can see that being a challenge for singers who want to sing the music, right? To find someone to coach them on the language to be correct. So
Totally.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We will find them. I also work as a linguist, and I promise you, we have contacts. So we will work on that for people, and we'll do our best.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in my doctoral dissertation, it appears some essentials of at least some of the 3 languages that are not that well known. In the part of the appendices, I have some analysis of songs in Asturian and in Galician, and of course the Castilian Spanish. So I have a special section where it showcases the fundamentals of these languages and the diction.
Yeah.
So people can consult that. Yeah.
Thank you.
There isn't a book resource, right? Somebody just asked that, that you would recommend for the Spanish that includes the various accents. Is there a?
Not yet.
No, it is
Okay.
a lot of research and everywhere. I mean, it is really difficult to find that.
Okay.
People can look through Spanish language departments. There are even some departments, for example, at Stanford, they offer classes in Quechua from Peru. And so you can find places that have teachers that speak it that might be able to help. And I know someone in Mexico City that is very active in indigenous languages of Nahuatl and Mayan from there. So there are contacts we can help you with. And Adrianalía did the IPA for those songs, so you can get it straight from her dissertation.
Wonderful.
I know in my dissertation, the Spanish all has IPA as well. So we're all working, it's not available. And should we go on to Omar before doing mine?
Yeah, yes, let's do that. Let's go to Omar. I've made him presenter.
All right, so I'm gonna show my screen now, or actually, let me show my screen. And can you guys see my screen?
We can.
Okay.
Yes.
But can you see me too, or just the
Yes.
YouTube? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just talk a little bit, and then I'll give some examples here. Well, my name is Omar Herrera, Dr. Omar, as they say. And then thank you, everybody. Kari, Adrianalía, Juanita, it's an honor to be here. I heard a lot about this chat, so great. This is very important to me because I'm from Mexico. I came to study here, and I finished my doctorate a few years ago on Ponce. And this topic is very personal to me because Ponce is my relative. He's technically my great grand uncle. But the only thing I inherited from him is the gray hair, as I say, not the gene, nothing else, just the gray hair. But I realized, being a student here, is that when I play his music or other Latin American music, music from Spain, it was never taken as seriously as the other European music. And I was like, I took it very personal. And then I realized, wait a minute. And that's when I said that one day, literally after thinking about this, I realized, wait, this is cultural colonialism. I even didn't realize about this. It's almost as if, no, it's not almost. It's like we need to ask permission to Europe. And to Europe, I mean the 3-4 main countries there. If they give us the check, yes, this is good enough, then we can enter that area of the so-called standard repertoire. And I'm like, I don't think so. We don't need that. We have our own stuff. Ponce, I can name like hundreds of composers, and many of them are at the same level as Schumann, as Bach, and one time I was giving a concert in a private home, and it was mostly people from Germany, and I play only Latin American music. And before I talked just for a few minutes, and I said, I think Ponce is as good as Beethoven. And oh my God, there was silence in the room, right? It's like, how do I dare to say that? But then I learned, okay, maybe we shouldn't compare. He's great. I love them. I'm not saying I don't. Of course, I love them. That's why I became a pianist, to play Mozart. I just cannot conceive my life without listening to Mozart anymore. But at the same time, there is such a richness and quality of music in all this continent. And after you hear it, you ask yourself, how can I be living without knowing this music? It's just fantastic. It's different. So that's why I founded I have a foundation called the Ponce Project. And I'll put the address there, it's ponceproject.org. And basically the mission is to connect the past, the canon, because the main void, what is missing, I think, is not just performing contemporary people that are composers that are contemporary, that are from Latin America or Spain. I think those get played. I think that's not the big problem. The problem is the canon, the great composers from the past, at least from Mexico and Latin America, are not well known. There's like this big gap, and then like, how can we not know that? But then I realized one day also, well, who's going to do it, as Juanita said? Well, we have to do it, right? People like us, otherwise nobody's going to do it. So and I find that we're in the right times. Like the zeitgeist is good for this right now, because equality is in the air, diversity, great. But the main problem that I found after doing this a few years, playing concerts, talking about it, all this stuff, is there's no scores. There's some resources, as Juanita spoke, and of course for contemporary composers, you can find the music. For the canon, there is a lack of quality, high quality scores that you can get, that are not copy of the copy of the copy that you can find free on the internet. We need proper scores, like the highest quality. And so the mission of my organization, or the focus of most of the resources in the last couple of years, although we still play concerts, is been switching to producing scores. So we found manuscripts, we're editing music, and we're about to launch a lot of music, including vocal music, of course. So we have access to that, because at the end of the day, if there's no scores, there's nothing. There is really nothing. That's the realization I had one day. And I thank all these other publishing companies that do publish some of the music, but there's a lot. There's way more to do. So that was one topic I wanted to talk about. And please let me know when it's time for me to be quiet, because I can talk about this a lot. The other topic is, I do get, as a pianist, I do get this question a lot, when this music should, in my opinion, should not be just be played by people from Latin America or Spain. It should be played for everybody. This should be universal. So when I hire somebody that is not Hispanic, which is fine with me, what I want is them to play very well, or to sing it really well. And they ask me, oh, what's the style? And then like, oh, what's the style of the Latin American song? What's the style of the Latin American piano music? And my answer is just read the music, read the score. I mean, there are some common practice rules, I guess, but I don't think, in my opinion, we're not there yet. There has to be a lot of scores, a lot of recordings. We have to play a lot, and then maybe we can start talking about, oh, well, wait, this has to be played this way, whatever. But just think about it in terms of somebody really famous. Let's talk about, I don't know, songs by Schumann, right? We really don't know. We're really skeptical how they sang it because there's no recordings of it. We can study it, we can do research and all that, but at the end of the day, we really don't know. So when you look at the music, I tell people who ask me, well, look at the music. This is tonal music. It has phrases, it has diction. Play it as you best can, but this is important, do your work, do your research. You can find out how to pronounce the Spanish. There's no excuse. You know, if you don't have IPA, call a friend or something. I do appreciate when singers sing, of course, all this music, but I think it's very obvious when they didn't do a proper research. And this bothers me because it shows a lack of respect for the music, right? And I think that's what's missing too, right? I tell my performers, we have to play this music amazingly well, because if you perform Beethoven in a mediocre way, everybody knows it's not the music. But if you don't play this music great, they don't know the music is great, right? We're not there yet. We're getting there. And that's what the Ponce Project is about. So how to accompany this music? There's so much diversity, and there's so many rhythms and styles that you have to kind of you have to do your research. And just to show you something, for example, just a couple of scores by Ponce, who has like about 150 songs. Here's where. So, for example, this song, okay, you'll see it. Insomnio. It has, for those musicians, the first measures, you can really see the Cuban rhythm, the cinquillo, pam pa pam pa pam pam pa pam pa pam. But Ponce mixes this with with the typical art song. The way the melody is shaped and the harmonies are very traditional late 19th century Europe. But compare that to this score, Hallelujah, which a lot of people know. It's a tremolo, and it's very operatic. It's completely different style than the song that I just showed you. This is just Ponce. And then I want to show just a few seconds of a video of our recent concert a few months ago. This is a song called One Morning in French, and it's a song accompanied by it's sung by mezzo-soprano Luisana Rivas and accompanied by Apollo chamber players. I will put just a few seconds so you can see how the style is completely different from operatic or traditional 19th century. And here it is, just 30 seconds.
Y de ahí terminamos, ¿ok, Omar?
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We realize, everybody, that the video sound isn't ideal. This isn't Zoom, it's GoToWebinar, and so it may not be set up as well. So, but we can hear some of it.
Oh, Too bad. Well, we're gonna put the links. We have a YouTube channels, and we have like many videos, and you can access this.
Wonderful.
And if they want the scores, we're working on them. You know, we're working on the resources. But anyway, thank you.
Wonderful.
That's what I can say now.
Thank you so much, Omar. That was wonderful. Appreciate your thought. And yeah, just to let everybody know, we will do our best. If you send me the links, we'll make sure that they're all of our NATS chats are archived on the official NATS YouTube channel. And so we'll make sure that in the archive of this chat will be the resource link. So Juanita and Omar, all of you just get those to me and we'll make sure that that happens. Yes.
Thank you, Kari. So we're gonna pass to another topic in Mexico and then go to some questions and terminology at the end. Omar, si me puedes alistar lo de 𝗏𝘂𝗀𝘀 con el cachito, porfa. And yes, Kari is helping us get this music to you. We've collected 16 pages of dissertations on all kinds of topics around Latin America, and they've all been done in the last 10 years, so I think you'll find them very useful, including two projects I'm going to mention right now. One is going to come out next year, and the other one's been out since 2018. I did my dissertation on Manuel M. Ponce's piano protege, Mr. Antonio 𝗏𝘂𝗀𝘀, who's very unheard of, and unless you're in elite music circles in Mexico. It's the Serenata Eterna. And I chose him because he wrote the world's first mariachi opera in 1929, and to date, it has never been performed. And along the way, this is an example of lack of either budgeting or priority or whatever. And along the way, I discovered 93 songs that he wrote, and I've published 3 volumes of them based upon my dissertation. And so they're available with Glendower at classicalvocalrep.com. And I wanted to play for you one of those songs today called Serenata Eterna, Eternal Serenade. And this is one of my voice students, Lydia Chavez, singing it. She is both a mariachi singer as well as a classical singer. I'm training her a crossover, which gives her a lot more work. And she actually sings mariachi in the Army because they formed a mariachi. So this is her singing classically. She's a coloratura. This piece sits pretty high, but not in the stratosphere. And it's an example of the kind of intermediate level short song of typical 𝗏𝘂𝗀𝘀 songs. So they're very accessible for university level singers. If they have a song list of 7 songs per semester, one of these 𝗏𝘂𝗀𝗀 songs should fit in. And we also have a song from his volume 2 that we're sharing with Kari that we want to make available for free. So you guys can take a song home with you, or we'll post it on the NATS chat Facebook page, or however Kari tells us to get it out. Okay, here we go, Omar, with Serenata Eterna.
Can you still see my screen, or do I need to?
No, it stopped. You must have stopped sharing. So just hit the share again.
Okay.
While he's doing that, I'll share that there's IPA and literal and poetic translations, and 2 keys for every song in these 3 volumes.
Can you see it?
Yes, thank you. Okay. We'll just play the first 40 seconds or so.
Okay, here it goes.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lydia Chavez. I will be singing Serenata Eterna, written by Antonio 𝗏𝘂𝗀𝗀. Sal, niña hermosa, sal a tu balcón. contempla la luna, escucha el cantar.
We can't hear it. Well,
Oh,
maybe
I can hear just a we'll put it if you have a link, you know, send it to me and everybody will be able to click on that link.
that sounds great. Well, we'll do that. So we won't play our links today, but they are available on YouTube if you look up, and we will make them available to all of you. Gomez Sanda's original name, by the way, is Gomez Anda. But when he went to study in Berlin, they could not grasp the double last name, and so he put it together into one, Gomez Sanda. He's a nationalistic composer. He does have a touch of surreal 20th century in him towards the end of his life, but most of his music is extremely kind of nationalistic with a little romantic in there. So he's, Omar, could we post that flyer of Gomez Sanda, please?
Yes, well, you have, and just so you know, Alan just reminded me that oftentimes on the replay of the recordings that you're playing are fine.
Oh,
So yeah,
thank
so
you.
hopefully that will be here. But yes, let's show the flyer for those who want to know.
Right. Yes, okay. The flyer. Oh, I see.
So he's double duty for me today because my share screen wasn't working. So thank you, Omar. And while he's looking for that, so you'll see there's a big lineage of Mexican composers. In fact, before Ponce, we had a great romantic opera composer named Melesio Morales. And I have a colleague in Mexico City that just finished a huge dissertation on one of his big operas. And she's constantly talking to me about how people can just walk into the archives and study and access any of this music. So I want to encourage people that are wanting to study something new and different to delve in, and we'd love to help them with that. Are you finding?
Yeah, I found it, but I'm sorry, I will have to send it because it is just too big and I cannot focus this right now.
Okay.
So let's okay. You're talking about the, gosh, I won't have it, it'll take too long, about the summer flyer, correct? So everyone, no, you're not talking about the flyer.
Go ahead with that though, yeah.
Well, I will post in the NATS chat page this evening the flyers from tonight's NATS chat that you have sent me.
Thank you.
About the upcoming. Yes, so that will be, so go to NATS chat, look, it'll be very obvious, and I will make sure those get posted tonight.
Thank you.
Yes.
So what Kari was referring to is that as we were preparing this talk for NATS chat, we came up with so much research that we realized we wanted to do a summer webinar, an online webinar to go into much more depth on these topics and play the music more continually and let you guys ask questions. And so we will have that flyer up, but it's going to be beginning July 11th for 4 Tuesday nights in a row, and it's all online. And you can sign up once you see the flyer, or you can email me, whatever works best for you. So we'd love to have you guys there because I know we won't get to everyone's questions today. The other topic besides Gomez Sanda on the classical side of Mexican art song and is the more commercial side, which I have worked on both sides. I feel like there's a very large gray area in the music world that mixes the two together. And that's something very common to Latin America because of the huge mix of people. If you think about it, you know, there was the African slave trade, there were the indigenous people, there were the Spanish that came over. All of that created more mix. And so that's the part that I find really fascinating. And I ended up in this mariachi world, but what I found was that there was this huge classical influence in mariachi singing that was not necessarily prevalent in the mariachi instrumental world. And I ended up writing a book called The Mariachi Voice, which will come out in February of 2024. And it was done with Oxford University Press. And it's a very comprehensive book that has lesson plans that you can do courses now with courses in mariachi vocal history. There's Mexican, Spanish lyric diction with mariachi words and IPA, teaching IPA. So now you can link maybe the mariachi in your university with your vocal studio, and or maybe you're just a singer that wants to learn more about it. There are also interviews with some famous singers, including Linda Ronstadt and the grandchildren of Jorge Negrete, who was one of the great opera singers in the 30s and 40s that catapulted mariachi to world fame. But he was an opera singer. And so there's really a fascinating crossover of history. And I'm very excited about that book. And there's a big 80-page section on vocal pedagogy. And I was honored to have the inclusion also of an article with John Nix, our well-esteemed colleague at NATS, and he's contributed to the book as well. So we're really looking forward to sharing that with you all when it comes out. We don't have pricing or anything yet, but please send me an email if you want to get on our list, and we'll be in touch about that. So I think what's really left is to answer people's questions. One other thing about mariachi. I wrote this book because I think the mariachi world and the voice world are in two separate worlds. And the mariachi people are so desperate for vocal training and so mistrustful of voice teachers who want to turn them into opera singers that they don't go. They've been turned away. And now that's not always true, but that's been the experience some have told me. And yet they're teaching themselves in an instrumental fashion. And sometimes that doesn't lead to the best singing in terms of long-term vocal health. And on the other side, there are things that the voice teachers, I know they'll be so helpful to mariachi singers if they're aware of just some of the things of the style. For example, that the women have their own lower 𝗏 that they sing in. I would call it the mariachi 𝗏, the female mariachi 𝗏. And there are other factors like that. But once you're aware of that, you know how to be respectful of the tradition and still teach them solid breathing and breath support and exercises that will help them build their voice in a safe way. So I think voice teachers have a lot to contribute to the mariachi world, and I hope that we can help with that.
Wonderful. Well, we're at the top of the hour, Juanita, but let's just take a couple more minutes. I would like you to talk about some of that brief terminology that I think is important for our members to consider.
Okay.
Or Omar.
Yes. Well, how about if I'll talk about Spanish and maybe Omar, you speak Latinx, Omar and Adri. I'm just going to say very briefly that the word Spanish means one thing in English and something else in Spanish. And so when you say, and I've noticed a lot of universities saying, oh, we're studying Spanish literature. And I said, oh, you're not doing Latin American? And they said, oh, yes, of course. And I'm like, oh, well, then you have to put that in your title. Because when you say Spanish literature, you're talking about Spain and not the language. In English, it means the language. I get that. So that's a part of the musical awareness that would be really helpful if you all could take that out there and help us rephrase these things so that they are accurate. So that's with diction, diction in Spanish, not Spanish diction, and Mexican lyric diction. So, okay, Omar.
I'll leave Adrianalía speak because she hasn't said much recently. So please.
Oh my goodness. I thought Juanita was having a beautiful summary because now we have this combination with the you know, people who are living in here, as you were mentioning, that have one or two that have been here living after one or two generations afterwards, and these topics can be a little bit sensitive. What I have is a very substantial list of sources where, like Britannica, the RAE, that is the Royal Academy of Language and things, explaining, you know, this type of terminology. I just try to do this, but I don't want to hurt some sensibilities while doing so, because they are extremely like dictionary-like, not very sensitive, you know, with the you know, with the people who actually have to have this identity embedded and has been erased, you know, within the Latin culture, but at the same time, and they have learned to appreciate and love the Latin culture. They have their roots in the Latin culture, but actually they have been living here for a while. And some of them, even though they have this love, some of them really are not fluent in Spanish. So there is a lot of controversy here. So I would like to pass, because I know that Juanita has a wonderful summary with all the information that I sent to her, plus some information that she collected that I find that is fascinating. So,
well, I'll just say in one or two sentences then, we did write some things out for the word Hispanic and the word Latinx, and just so that and we'll make that available. And I know that many universities have just arbitrarily said, oh, we're Latinx, and they think that just encompasses everything. And I think the original intent of the term was to neutralize the genders and make that accessible, which I think is a very important issue in the United States. And I'm not saying it isn't abroad, but the awareness level or preference might not be there abroad. Something that is very, very important to Latin Americans, because they've only had their independence for 125 years in some cases, like Cuba in 1898. So it wasn't that long ago. They want their country to be recognized in terms of its traditions and with its name. And they don't want to be grouped into a term, we're Latinx. They don't relate to that at all. So it depends on where you're coming from. If you're in the United States celebrating this tradition, it's happening. We can't change that. It's kind of like Cinco de Mayo. People said to Mexicans in the US, we're going to adopt Cinco de Mayo. It's a very minor holiday in Mexico, but we have a separate holiday, but now we get two, so we don't complain. But was it our idea? No. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people have strong feelings about it. We welcome a future conversation. We want to be open-minded and learn from each other. And I know we're not all the same age either. And so I think
yes,
we can learn from each other. That's all I'll say.
Juanita, now for...
Go ahead, Audrey.
Oh, yes, thank you. I just found here, for instance, for Britannica, that it just combines things that are actually, it can be polemic a little bit. It says Latinx. It is a gender-neutral term referring to someone living in the United States who was born or has ancestors from Latin America. It is an alternative to the masculine Latina, the masculine Latino and feminine Latina forms. The word came into usage in the early 21st century as more people rejected binary categorization of gender and sought greater inclusivity. In addition, Latinx was seen as a challenge to the alleged patriarchy in a number of languages. Spanish is notably a gender-based language that defaults to the masculine form. For instance, a group of people with one male member are called Latinos. The term Latinx was not without its critics. However, some claim is it unnecessary, a product of excessive political correctness. Within the Hispanic community, the Anglicized word was criticized for for not following the rules of the Spanish pronunciation and suggesting linguistic imperialism. This may partly explain why few Hispanics identify as Latinx. In a 19 survey, only about 3% self-described as Latinx. In addition, that same study found that within the broader population, the term's popularity largely reside with younger individuals, just about what Juanita was mentioning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Juanita, were you about to say something?
No.
Okay. Well, you have all been so generous tonight, and thank you. Again, I really appreciate your passion and generosity. It just emanates from all three of you, your generosity to share this information. And so I'm really grateful for that. And again, when we post the replay of this NATS chat, we will do our best to get several of these links in the description. It'll be found in the description of the YouTube link. And so thank you so much for joining me. And thank you everyone who's joined me this NATS chat season. I want to thank Inside View Press for their sponsorship yet again of these NATS chats, and for NATS in general, the organization, for continuing to support and provide support for these chats. So thank you. I'll be working hard this summer on next season, and so stay tuned for information about that. You can always join the Facebook page, NATS Chat for Teachers, and that's where you'll find the most current information. So thank you to my three guests, and I hope you all have a wonderful summer.
Thank you, Kari. Thank you, NATS, and thank you, NATS.
And thank you for all the attendance as well.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.